I do not usually talk about politics. My life is about machines, rockets, and people who want to build things. But sometimes you look at what is happening and you just cannot stay silent. In the United States, for 34 days now, the government has not been fully working. Millions of people are without pay, without help, without knowing if they will have food tomorrow. And all this is not because of a war or a natural disaster, but because grown adults in Washington cannot agree on a few pieces of paper. It feels senseless. We can send a rocket into space, launch it, deliver a satellite into orbit, then bring part of the rocket back and use it again. All that costs around $50 million. We can do it because we understand that if we do not, we lose. Meanwhile, the government cannot simply send checks to people waiting for money to buy food. Not because there is no money, but because no one is in a hurry. The problem is not money or technology. The problem is responsibility. When I came to a company with 200 employees, we were one step away from bankruptcy. It was 2008. I spent the last of my money, slept on the floor, ate peanut butter straight from the jar. But we survived. Because everyone understood if we did not make it that day, we would not exist tomorrow. We did not wait for someone to come and save us. But in Congress, no one is afraid of anything. They can argue for months, block each other, stop the entire country, and still receive their $174,000 a year, and almost all of them win their seats again. It is a system that does not punish inaction. In business, if you do not do your job, you are fired. If a fund fails, investors take their money. If a rocket explodes, you lose everything. But in Washington, if people are starving, no one even apologizes. A woman wrote to me. Her name is Margaret, she is 67. She has worked in a government office for 30 years. She must keep going to work because without her, others will not get their payments. But she has not been paid for 5 weeks. Her husband is retired. His pension is $1,400 a month. Their mortgage is $980. Medicine costs $320. Insurance $450. She must choose between paying for electricity or buying her husband's medicine, and this woman has given her whole life to her country. I can send a car into space just because it is interesting. Yet she cannot get her honestly earned pay. Where is the logic in that? There is a program that helps people buy food. It costs around $80 billion a year, or about $7 billion a month. To understand how small that is, it is 0.14% of the total budget. Such a small amount that it is less than the margin of error in accounting. Yet even that money the government cannot release on time. Meanwhile, the Department of Defense spends the same $80 billion just on research. And $2 trillion have gone into the war in Afghanistan. The country's yearly debt interest is $640 billion. But feeding people, that is somehow too difficult. A court ordered the government to at least pay part of the food aid, half. Families that used to receive $600 will now get $300. And even those $300 they will have to wait for. They say it may take weeks or months. My cars get software updates overnight while people sleep. But the government cannot update its system for weeks. And you know why? Because their computers run on a program written in 1959. That is not a joke. I do not blame the workers. They do what they can. But up above, there is no sense of urgency. Because it is not their children going hungry. A veteran named Thomas wrote to me. He is elderly, served in Vietnam, has medals. His son works for a government agency, but has been unpaid for a month. Thomas gave his savings to help his son's family. Now he stands in line for free canned food. A man who once fought for his country now waits for a box of beans. How did we reach a point where we can launch the biggest rockets in the world but cannot feed a veteran? I have lived through times when my company was close to closing. We all worked 80 or even 100 hours a week because we knew it was now or never. But in Congress, people work a few days a week, fly home in business class, have dinners with sponsors, and do not hurry to solve problems. The system does not work, its incentives are broken. No one fears losing their seat. The solution is actually simple. First, if politicians do not approve a budget by a certain date, the previous one stays in force automatically. The government does not shut down, people get paid. Second, if there is no budget, there should be no pay for members of Congress. No work, no money. That is how the rest of the world lives. And third, stop redrawing election districts for personal advantage. As long as most politicians have guaranteed seats, they have no reason to change anything. I know a couple, Robert and Patricia. They are 68. They retired 4 years ago. Their daughter works for an environmental agency, now unpaid. Their son-in-law is a contractor, also unpaid. So Robert, with arthritis, now stands on his feet in a hardware store for $16 an hour, and Patricia drives at night to give people rides. They do this not for themselves, but to help their daughter keep her home. This is not normal. They worked all their lives, paid taxes, raised their children, and this is what they get, the state abandoning them. What is most irritating is that those same politicians later post on social media about supporting seniors and helping working families. Then they vote against funding and go to dinners costing $1,000 a plate. Meanwhile, prices rise, food is a quarter more expensive, fuel up by $1.50 a gallon, insurance by a third. People can barely hold on. And now they are told no paychecks, no food aid. In business, when costs go up, we find ways to save, to work more efficiently. We do not tell customers, sorry, we have no suppliers, there will be no cars. We find a way, because we know no one will save us. I cannot fix this whole problem alone, but I can do something. I will give $10 million to food banks in the places where people are struggling the most. That will not solve everything, but it will help a few thousand families get through this month. And to politicians, I want to say one thing: do your job. You have one task: pass a budget or at least a temporary measure so the country keeps running. I manage several companies at once, and all of them function. If I can do that, the government should handle one single task. To those now struggling, I will say this: do not panic. Panic only hurts. If you have debts, call your creditors, ask for a delay, many will understand. If you need food help, do not be ashamed. You paid taxes, you have the right to ask for help when things are hard. If you have strength, find some temporary work. Even a few $100s can make a difference. And most importantly, support one another. If you can help your neighbor do it, do not wait for instructions from above. When I ran companies, I learned that a true leader is the one who takes responsibility, who thinks about people, who does not hide behind excuses. A bad leader looks for someone to blame and cares only about himself. There are too many bad leaders in Washington right now, and as long as they face no consequences, nothing will change. So I ask people to do at least 3 things. First, vote differently. Do not automatically choose the same people. Choose those who actually do something. Second, demand accountability. Write, call, remind politicians that you exist. And third, support each other. Because the government will not save you. We can only rely on ourselves and those close to us. I can launch rockets, build electric cars, create new ideas. But even in my companies, there has never been a moment when we stopped paying people because we could not agree on a budget. If we did that, the company would simply die. Yet Congress can afford it, because for them, there are no consequences, and as long as there are none, this will keep happening again and again. It is time to change that. Time to demand better. Time to hold accountable those who forgot that their job is to serve the people.